Hey folks, this is Ham Radio on Fire. My name is Kevin. Today I'm going to talk about preparing safe drinking water. So what I want to do is look at what the EPA has to offer on this. So I'm going to do a little word search on emergency disinfection of drinking water from the EPA. We'll look at their document. If you go to the website, you can read the information yourself. You can also download this PDF of it. So it's here in web form. We'll look at the PDF. When you download this, make sure you print a copy of it. We have a copy of this pinned up in our laundry room where we keep our bleach in case we have to make some safe drinking water. So this document kind of outlines what to do. Now remember, I'm not your doctor. Do your own research, make your own decisions. I'm only showing you some information. I'm just recommending what I would do. So, all right, that said, we're going to disinfect water until regular water service is returned or restored. So what does disinfect actually mean? We kind of have to look at the words a little bit because people often throw these words like sterilize and purify around and they're not necessarily used in the right manner. So to disinfect is basically to cleanse a supply of water by destroying, inactivating, or significantly reducing. That's important there because we're significantly reducing the concentration of a pathogen such as a bacteria, virus, or a fungi. So people often say, I'm going to sterilize my water. You're not really doing that because sterilization is a process that requires you to use steam or dry heat. In a lab such as ours, we use an autoclave. So it's pressure and steam over a period of time, which actually sterilizes. They do the same thing with any autoclave in a hospital or whatever to do that. So often we use the word when you're cleaning it, you're sanitizing it. So what does sanitize mean? It's also to reduce or eliminate a pathogen such as bacteria on a surface to basically disinfect it. So disinfection is to reduce and sterilize is to completely eliminate. And then we use the word purify. Basically, purify is to remove anything or any imperfection from what you're trying to purify. So water purifiers are, definitely removing some stuff, but there are going to be some things left over. And remember, no method is 100%. So keep that in mind as you're doing this. I've been backpacking out west. I'm using a pump type filter for backpacking and still came home with Giardia. Might have been my own fault, and I'll discuss that in a little bit here. So let's go back to the EPA's document here. Again, back to their website, and I'm going to download this. I'm going to print it so I have a physical copy taped to the wall somewhere where I'm going to keep bleach or where I'm going to keep my water supply. That way I don't have to go to the internet for this. I have it with me. So the first off is to boil your water, and you can do that anyway with a campfire, with a wood stove in the house, with electricity, or with white gas, Coleman stove, whatever it is. You can boil your water. The critical thing to that is that the water be as clean as possible when you start, and we'll talk about how to potentially remove some of those impurities and things that you don't want in your water, like mud. But the big thing here is to boil it for at least 1 minute, and that's for those of us who live here, 600 to 800 feet above sea level. But what often gets people in trouble is that when you live out west somewhere, or in my case, you're traveling and vacationing on a backpack trip out west, and you don't boil your water quite long enough. Water will boil at a lower temperature at higher elevations, specifically above 5,000 feet. So I was in Canyonlands in Utah, and I think the base elevation is 7,000. So I may not have boiled my water long enough that I was using from the creeks and ponds that were available there. So in that case, the water needs to boil for at least 3 minutes. And so that's critical. That's the easiest way to do that, but let's say you don't have access to enough heat to make gallons and gallons and gallons of water. You can use typical household bleach. Now, that can be bought just about anywhere. You're going to want to mark what kind of bleach it is, whether it's 6 or 8%, and you're going to get that by reading the label right there. You want to make sure with your bleach as well that you're not buying the scented or the one that's splashless. Now the splashless one, I believe it has surfactant in it that makes it thicker, so it's like a soap. and you definitely don't want to be drinking any of that. It will make you sick. So you want just straight up regular bleach. The store brand is often going to be just a regular one, but read the label on that. Make sure you're getting one that's not scented or has any other added cleaners to it, because those things will make you sick. So that bleach basically, and there's a protocol for using a dropper, and often you can find this in your medicine cabinet or your vitamin cabinet, and dedicate that dropper to it, and then you add so many drops, and you wait for a certain amount of time. And that's critical that you do that. So I'll let you read that yourself. You could, say let it stand for 30 minutes, and then in a week or two you're going to forget. So it's printed out right here for you to look at. There's some instructions on if it basically isn't good enough. Then you might want to add some more, and it goes on. It has a nice little handy table here, and it breaks it out by the concentration in bleach that you're using, whether it be 6 or 8%, 8.25%. So again, having that printed out is really critical for that. As well, you might look at other sources of water in your home. You can melt some ice from your ice machine, so that's some drinking water. Your hot water tank is also a good source of water. If you keep it flushed out on a regular basis, you're supposed to flush those once a year to clean out the sediment in them. And when you do that, you should have access to the spigot on the bottom of the hot water heater, and you can just attach a hose to that and drain it out. Now, you're not really supposed to drink from a garden hose. So actually on my house, I bought a short piece of hose, I think it's 6 feet, which is dedicated for drinking water. You buy it at an RV store. You can find it on the web pretty easily and purchase it for pretty cheap. If you do have to use water outside the home, flowing water is always better. The less it moves and the more stagnant it becomes, the more it accumulates. I've been out in Zion Park out in Utah, actually, and all we had was pond water. It was like drinking boiled eggs. It was so sulfurous and nasty, but it was the only water we had, and we were really desperate. So we boiled it for a long time, let it cool, and then we filtered it. We had kind of doubled up on the redundancy there, but it was worth it in the end. But my friend went with as little as he could consume because he hates boiled eggs anyway, and the water was particularly ripe on that day. Consider how the water looks. And one of the things is you can choose to filter your water through cloth in the house, handkerchiefs, t-shirts, whatever it might be, as long as they're relatively clean. You may even consider some of the things that the Boy Scouts have talked about. If you were an old Boy Scout from the 60s through the 80s, you may have seen one of these field books, or maybe one of their old Boy Scout handbooks. They have instructions on this. I did find this source real quickly on the web, on a bushcrafter type site, and this little tripod is manufactured, and on top of the tripod you're basically tying 3 tiers in here, and then what you do is you put different substrate in each of those, grass, sand, and then charcoal, and have a pan underneath it to collect your water. Then you can take this and boil it and filter it further if you want to. It's probably not going to do much for taking out the pathogens, but it's going to be better than nothing. So it's a way to pre-filter the water if you have the ability to filter it in some other way. This is the way to do it. I've been, again, out in Utah, spent a lot of time out in Utah, and we got a lot of rain on a trip, and there was, the river was like chocolate milk. It was so thick with sediment. So I filled up my plastic container. I had a platypus container. It's flexible plastic. And I let it sit overnight. And this thing was 2 liters, so it's about this tall. And what I did was I let it sit overnight, and then at the bottom 3 inches of it, there was nothing but sediment. And then the top 4 inches above that, it was hazy. And then there was really only a few inches of clear water at the top. So I dipped my hose down and my filter into that clear zone and sucked out as much water as I could while avoiding the sediment at the bottom. That was, the method I used to get a little bit of water. Overnight, the creek had cleared up as well, so we were able to get some clear water out of it and make sure our filters were able to do their job. But still, filtering water with that much sand and sediment in it is really, really challenging. So I ran into some folks that were some volunteers on the trail, and I asked them, what are you using for water out here? And they recommended these Sawyer filters. Now, these Sawyer filters are inline filters. They can be used as gravity filters as well. I can provide some more information on that. Just leave me a comment and I will. The nice thing about these is they're super light. They're really no bigger They're a little bit bigger than a film canister. They weigh about as much as an old film canister with a roll of film in it. So they're really light. I have a couple of these, one in each backpack, and then the kids have a couple as we each one for their backpack. So everyone in the family has one of these. In the event of emergency, you can screw this literally onto a liter bottle and drink from the liter bottle through this. And this has got dialysis tubing in it that does the filtering. The nice thing is it comes with a syringe, a 60 cc syringe. You can put on this end and back flush it. So they brag about like 10,000 gallons of water for one of these. And you can take a look at them. I like them. They're about 25 to 30 bucks nowadays, but they're really handy, and they make a slightly larger one, which I had. That was one of the first ones I got. I haven't used them a lot, but yeah, there's your syringe right there. All right, so let's go back to our document. Take a little look further. You can also use disinfection tablets. Now, we'll come back to tincture of iodine here in a second. I'm not going to talk about the granular calcium hypochlorite much. That stuff, you got to source that and use it very carefully. But we'll talk about a couple other things. So they make disinfection tablets. You can buy these at your outfitter. These are basically a chlorine compound that's added to water. You got to wait so long for it to purify that. Or not purify it, but disinfect it. There you go. There's the right word. And basically, they're kind of nice. They're little foil wrappers, and you can divide these out into your backpacks however you see fit. They do have a lifespan. This has been expired for a little while, but it just stays in the extra kit. I need to get some new ones of them to have, but they are there for an emergency type purpose. As well, chlorine bleach has a lifespan as well. So it says in this document here, the EPA document, that you want bleach that's less than a year old. So you got to consider that as well. Most of us aren't going to go through that much bleach anymore, but if you do, you may be using it for various other things like pressure washing or basically removing mildew around the house in the springtime. So maybe you go through a lot of it then. But that said, those things do have a lifespan, so pay attention to it. Now let's talk about tincture of iodine real quick. Basically, I have some of this. It's 2%. It's used for a disinfectant. It can be used for basically this purpose as well. So you're going to add 5 drops of this to water. You're going to wait 30 minutes. And that's important to realize because, you know, you want to basically wait the required amount of time or more for that, because if you don't, you're basically not disinfecting. Now with this, they have a little dropper pin in there like that, and you literally just take that and tap off the drop at a time. Dip it, take it, and drop it into your liter bottle from there. You can buy these. They're a little harder to get nowadays with the way things are in the world, but you can get these for fairly cheap still. And again, you want tincture of iodine 2%. You don't want to make the mistake of using your household iodine compound. This stuff can be pretty toxic. It is not formulated for this, so don't mix this up with proper tincture of iodine. Again, I'm not your doctor. Do your own research. Make your own decisions on that. That's all I really had to cover today. I just thought I would do a short video on disinfecting water and what the EPA has to say about it. This document is out there on the web, and hopefully you'll be able to find this pretty easily. Here's your website link if you want to copy it yourself. I'll go ahead and put this in the comments, and we will see you next time. This is Kevin. Talk to you later.